Invocation by Councilor Collins.
Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather here this evening to conduct the business of the city. We feel privileged to represent the people in our city, and we thank you that we have been elected to do so. We hope that we can listen fairly and impartially this evening. We hope that we can be respectful to one another, and it is our prayer that we administer the duties of our office with due diligence. Please be with us tonight as we conduct the business of our city. We would also like to remember the family of Randy Engel, our city employee this week. Please be with them as they suffer his loss, and thank you for the years that we had with Randy and the wonderful servant's heart that he had and the things that he gave to the city so willingly. We hope that we can all be that way and be willing to serve as he did. So please be with them as they go through this time of loss, and also with those employees that work closely with Randy and are also going through difficulty. We ask these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. So I would let the minutes reflect. It appears that Councilman Gross is absent tonight. There are 6 members present, so it requires 4 votes for any action on any items.
Councilor Gross does extend his apologies, but he is teaching his political science class at Grace College tonight.
All right. So let's look at the minutes from the February 4th regular session of the Common Council. Those have been presented. Are there any corrections to those?
Having read the minutes, I'd make a motion to pass them.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you. I'd like to recognize all our visitors here tonight. Welcome. We have a special visitor, Mayor Joe Kelsey from the city of Woodburn. You'll hear from his wife a little bit later this evening. So welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
They had their meeting last night, so you're off tonight.
I'm off the hook.
Good. Thanks, Joe. All right, let's move into reports, oral and written communications. Item 1, I was going to have Lake City Bank come and talk a little bit about the projects that they've been doing in the city. I know they were here about a year ago and updated us on the investment that they're making in the community, the jobs they've created downtown, and I asked Whitney to put this on for March, and it inadvertently got put on for tonight. So Dave will be here in March to discuss Lake City Bank's investment in our downtown and our community. So item number 2 on reports, oral and written communications is the Comcast franchise fee. $12,485.78. Lynn, any comments?
No, it's about on par with what it has been the last couple of quarters, so
All right.
fluctuates a few $100s here and there.
All right, very good. Let's move into unfinished business. First item is the second reading, ordinance 2019-0201. This is a transfer of funds for the GIS server software. You remember we passed on first reading. This is from the street department, general fund street department, $4,000 transfer from 390 services, other services and charges to capital outlays. So I believe again that we all heard the discussion at the last meeting. I know the council requested the second and final reading tonight. Any more comments or questions?
If I remember correctly, this is because they didn't have the money for their share of the GIS in the proper area, and that's why we're transferring the money over. Is that correct? Okay.
There's a piece of equipment that needs to be, we found out we had an outdated piece of equipment. We decided to share it amongst departments. Most departments had it in their capital outlays. The street department did not. So that's what the transfer is about.
make
piece
a
of equipment was
motion
for
then.
the city server. Yeah.
I'll make a motion then that we approve the transfer ordinance 2019-0201.
I'll second. I'll second it.
We have 2 seconds. You can pick whichever one you want. All right. All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And again, we have a second reading. This is also a transfer. This is in the police department, allowing that money to go from personal services, which was a cell phone allowance, to communication and transportation. I think we discussed the phones that will be purchased with a contract that will have greater benefit and savings for the city. But again, that money was budgeted in the typical cell phone way where it was all an allowance, and since we've changed, we're asking, and you voted last time to move that from 130 to 320. So, questions?
I would make a note that I've tried to look into this some, because I'm trying to understand it, and the more I look into it, the more maybe confused I am, or the more questions that I have, and I would like a little more time to look at it and review it with HR when she gets back.
It's certainly your prerogative.
Well, I think it also reminded me of 4 or 5 years ago when we had the conversation of doing this for all of the city employees that use their personal phones and personal equipment for council and for other people, for the treasurer's office. And I'd like to incorporate that in the discussion if we do have one.
Well, this is just basically the police department's request to transfer, and they have, as we mentioned at the last meeting, they worked with a entity that will supply phones, will buy them back, will save the city money, will allow them to also communicate in times of concern, any disasters that might occur. Those phones will be moved to the top, communications. So a lot of that was discussed at the last meeting, but I am certainly, if you want to continue that discussion, I'm fine with that. At the time, several years ago, the issue was, do employees want to carry around 2 phones? And instead of independent departments purchasing phones with independent or separate contracts, the idea was just to go back to a cell phone allowance of 3 different levels that saved the city money at the time. Obviously, things have changed in 5 years. Do employees want to carry 2 phones? Do they use that phone? Would that cell phone allowance cover a second phone for an employee that barely uses it? The idea with the cell phone allowance was to set levels based on the actual utilization that by department head would determine who got what level of cell allowance. So there were pluses and minuses. There's pluses and minuses to this. We can have this discussion for as much or as little as you want. I'm not sure what more you want to talk about on second reading, but if the rest of the council feels that way.
Well, I spoke with some officers from a different city, and they use, like we are now, just give their officers a stipend for using a personal phone. They're perfectly happy with that. And I think it's been working pretty well here too, as far as that goes. I don't know if we've had any problems. And,
Chief Whitaker, maybe it would be helpful if you reviewed this again, because as I understand it, your request is for specific phones for emergency personnel. And so perhaps you could just tell us a little bit more about it, because it seems like we're getting confused with just general city business and whoever might use their phone for work and what officers actually need in emergency situations.
Well, correct. This is a working mobile device. It's more than a phone. I understand, other agencies have done the phone allowance as well. Our officers stopped taking the stipend about 6 months ago because they don't want to use that phone for work purposes. And because of that, we really don't have any other options other than to, one, just use their personal phone and for phone calls, and that would be it. We're really limiting their ability to use that mobile device while on duty and obviously while using specific apps. That's, you know, the new technology is basically requiring us to move towards, and these apps don't necessarily work on a laptop, and you really need to be on a phone. And I did bring our systems administrator here tonight that can answer some questions. I will say for 2 weeks since the last reading, you know, I've not had any phone calls, so should be happy to answer those questions for you. This is Angie. Start off speaking by talking about the Freedom Act.
Okay. The police software that we use, the phones aren't phones anymore. They're mobile devices. Our police software that we use on station and in the cars allows us an application that we can put on the phone, and we can have our state software put into that. They cannot have the personal phone have that app on it. It's very limited on who has access, and if anyone were to use that phone in a personal way, it would jeopardize our IDACs that we acquire through the state. So it's not necessarily a phone anymore. It allows the officer to have a handheld device in their hand at all times to be able to conduct business while they're in, per se, someone's home or on station even. They can run names, check for warrants, something that they could not do with their personal phone. IDACs won't allow that. Along with the fact that they can also take pictures with these mobile devices. They can take statements with these mobile devices. It's not necessarily a phone anymore. They would have access to everything that they need in their hand at the time, even if they're not in their car or on station. So I think that that's where the real benefit of the mobile device comes in. They would have the access to the software with them at all times. And that allows them emergency as well. If they had an emergency, they would be able to use the app to contact dispatch as well. So it's just not a phone any longer, unfortunately.
Angie, you might say what IDAX is, what that stands
Oh.
for, and exactly what that is, so everybody understands.
Okay, IDAX is the state's website that they can take a name of a person and a driver's license or a date of birth, and they can run them through the system. It's Indiana Communications. They would be able to run a name or a plate and get a backlog of what everyone's done. So if they have a warrant in front of them, a felony warrant, someone who could potentially be dangerous, a protective order, they would be able to see all that on their device at the time, whereas they may not have access to that if they're not in their car or on station.
And so this is really a safety issue for the officers.
Honestly, it is, yes.
Don't they get that from dispatch right now?
I'm sorry.
Don't they get that information from dispatch right now?
They can, yes.
Okay.
If they're where they can contact dispatch.
And they have their
If they're
radio
in
and things like
pursuit
that,
of somebody
yes.
or a bicycle.
We just
officers.
bought brand new radios so they could communicate any place they are.
Say that
Just
again.
upgrade our whole system.
That was my point. I'm not trying to be negative. That was just a
I understand what
question.
you're saying. I believe what she's saying is a safety measure. If the officer can't communicate, let's say he's injured in the line of duty, he has a GPS tracker, he's in a foot pursuit, he can't breathe.
It's a
kinda
backup
difficult
type
to do
thing.
that. You'd have to be able to track where they're at. And again, I want to reiterate, the 17,700 was budgeted for, and it was the amount in for the actual stipend, so it's not, we're not asking for more money, just to move it, and it'd be a work phone. I can tell you that this is, at least from every officer that I've talked to, this is their desire to have a phone they can use, a mobile device while on duty. And again, this is in exchange of the stipend that they're no longer willing to accept.
And one point too is that dispatch doesn't always get right back to the officer with the information they receive from IDAX, because they're busy too.
I was gonna say also, in response to the radios, that communication comes out over the radio, and the person that you're dealing with
Yeah.
has access to that, and so they wouldn't even know what was taking place if it was done on their phone versus verbal communication.
You say they're no longer willing to accept the stipend?
That's correct, because it comes with terminology and requires a commitment that the officers aren't willing, it's a personal phone, and they're not willing to sign off on something that would maybe give up any potential rights on that phone.
Can you explain that more, please? I'm confused. I'm sorry.
Well, HR is not here to be able to explain it in detail, but a stipend required, you actually had to sign an agreement, obviously for FOIA requests, that type of thing. Any request that you would expect. Obviously, the officer doesn't want to compromise his personal phone to be subject to that. So therefore, if he was using something that was the city of Warsaw's, it'd be used solely for the city of Warsaw. While he was off duty, he'd turn that device off and return to his personal phone.
Thanks.
And if I'm, again, not mistaken, this would be less than the $17,700 that was already been budgeted for. The cost for these phones would cost the city less for all these advantages.
That's correct, as long as the terms in which we understood when we met with that particular cellular company hasn't changed, but we will commit that we will not go over that $17,700 as we agreed upon.
The other thing that I understand also is that the phones are going to be the property of the city, whereas now when we pay out a stipend, and if an officer leaves and goes to somewhere else, gets another job, we've paid him the stipend, and there's no way to recover that money. So,
Kind of rent?
no, they get it like, he could have either requested for a year or 6 months at a time, and, because I sign those things, and so once they request that money and it goes to the officer, he's been paid that money, and so if we have, the city-owned phones, and the city-owned phone would come back to the city if the officer left for any reason, and then be continued to use by the city, so we're not putting out money.
I think that's an interesting subject. I'd like to see the whole city do things like this, and that's why I thought we could get this conversation and do it one time and have a new policy for the whole city, rather than hodgepodge it.
Ron, I will say that in our meetings with the cellular company, we had all the other department heads there, and I think that those department heads are already basically committed for the most part to their phones. I see what you're saying and asking about as far as potentially everybody coming on board. The government agreement, the government contract is what it is. So it's the same for any department. It's not going to matter the number of phones we're purchasing, that type of thing. Basically, they'd be able to piggyback off of what we already have. So if we're able to get this established and rolling, they'd be able to do the same thing.
Is there an emergency on this, Scott?
Well, we've been waiting for a period of time because I know that we have apps we want to get up and running. We feel that it's very important. And so
Yeah, I do too. I'm not disagreeing with the idea at all, the concept. I just like to consolidate everything and do it once.
Well, it doesn't mean that every department's going to want to do it. You're the one that last year that didn't want to do your own personal iPad because you wanted to use the city iPad. You didn't want somebody taking your iPad. You didn't want to be susceptible if there was information on there. And that's essentially what some of the officers feel with the sensitive information they deal with on their devices. They don't want that information on there.
Sure.
So, that's one option. There may be other departments that don't want to carry two phones, that use that phone limited enough, and they're willing to take the stipend. If this isn't costing the city anymore, the big issue several years ago was that each department was out basically getting their own contracts, and there was no uniform contract. We've got a uniform contract now. We've got a government contract now. And frankly, if it's saving the city money, I don't see a problem with it, because there is no good answer. Some departments carry two phones, some police departments carry two, some carry one. There's not a perfect answer. And the issue is obviously an app and a situation with putting sensitive information on the phone with the police department. That may not carry over to somebody that has only a $10 stipend that works for the street department that has to call a light in or out. So, I don't know that there's going to be a policy that everybody's going to have to do that. The idea is that we're trying to save the city money. We're trying to do what's best for the departments. And I think we've got the opportunity to go ahead and purchase the phones and save over what we were paying in the cell phone allowance. I don't see where the issue is.
I've spoken a lot. Does any other council members have any thoughts?
Just so I understand, right now, they are using their personal phones, but they aren't getting a stipend because they did not sign off?
They're using their personal phones as a phone, just for phone calls, text messages that we, for contacting and communication. But as far as on duty, they're limited and just primarily using their mobile, or their, their laptop or their tablet, whichever one they actually have assigned to their vehicle. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah. And I will say this, as far as doing it all at one time, I'm still gonna have to come back and ask to move money, because there's not enough funds in communications in order to pay for this. I don't know about the other departments, but again, they're gonna have to do it, and if they don't, they'll have to come back in front of you. But again, I would just be returning as well.
Well, I appreciate what you shared too, that it's not going to save any money to do the whole city at once, because I think that was fiscally responsible to think about that. But if it's not going to make any difference, and we know that they want to do this and they're ready to do this, and that they're without that type of communication device right now,
I
that's
think it's a good
concerning
idea.
to me. Yeah.
But waiting 2 more weeks, is that a problem?
Well,
I feel
I
like
guess
the
my
question's
problem is
answered.
you've had this since December. He made this request in December, and, yeah, and we didn't meet then twice. So we've had this request now for 6 weeks already, almost 2 months. We've had time to look at it and ask questions, and they said they're not getting any questions. Lynn's got a couple questions. They're answering some of our questions tonight. I guess I'm just wondering what we'll find out in 2 more weeks, now making it 2
Well,
months.
it's kind of like a lot of ordinances that come for, we don't have much discussion, the first reading, and the second reading is really where the activity starts. And I-
Yeah,
I
and we
see
are
that
getting
as
good
this.
discussion
Yeah.
tonight. I think we're getting some information that maybe you didn't have before.
Right.
I guess that's just my point, though, that we have had
That's
a
well
long
taken.
time, and to look at it, they're without devices right now. That's a concern for me. It's a safety concern for me.
Any more questions, Chief? All right, I'll open it up to you all for final discussion. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to make a motion that we pass ordinance 2019-0101 with the information we've received tonight.
Motion by Dan, is there a second? All right. Motion dies for lack of second. All right, new business. Resolution 2019-0203. This is a confirmatory resolution for economic revitalization area. This is a public hearing. Jeremy, you want to just give, we did, in first reading, approve this last month? Last
Yes,
meeting?
last month you approved the designating resolution, which allows you now to review the confirmatory resolution, which would confirm the designation of the property in ERA, which then would allow it to receive tax abatements, which you have before you is an SB1, requesting a 10-year tax abatement for personal property. This is a public hearing, so we'd have to open it up to the public, after which you could vote on the resolution and then approve the abatement if you so choose to.
Questions?
I move we approve.
I'll open this up for public hearing.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on behalf of the confirming resolution which creates an economic revitalization area?
I'll speak up. Just, I was here 2 weeks ago with the first resolution, and just for our support in this approval, so.
Mike White, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, anyone else? All right, anyone else wishing to speak against the petition? Anyone else wishing to speak against the petition? All right, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing portion of the meeting, turn it back to the council. Any questions of city planner?
He always does a good job.
Yeah, it is.
Is that a motion to approve the,
So moved.
I'll second.
any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, who made that motion?
Ron?
Thank you.
All right, item number
So now
Two.
that you've officially approved the area and ERA, now you have the tax abatement before you. They are requesting a 10-year tax abatement based on the city's guidelines. Being personal property, it does not necessarily tie itself to jobs. It's purely based on the amount of money spent on personal property, which they exceed the amount that is necessary to approve a 10-year abatement based on the city's guidelines. So it would be my recommendation that you would approve the SB1 submitted on behalf of Lake City Heat Treating Corp. To have that 10-year personal property tax abatement.
I would move to approve the tax abatement of personal property.
And I would second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you. Item number 3, Resolution 2019-0204. This would be just the acceptance of the grant. Actually, it will transfer, it's a resolution to transfer the grant funds awarded for Rotary Park by the Kosciuszko Community Recreation Visitor Center and the Kosciuszko Community Foundation. Those funds were directed for this project. Amount to, looks like $3,137.75. Jeremy?
It's pretty simple. Because this is a reimbursement grant, we paid out the funds. We've got those funds in now, so we're just putting it back into the fund that we paid out for the rock pieces that'll go part of the Rotary Park. It's typical to what we do with NDOT projects as we pay out that engineering fund and as we get reimbursed from NDOT on our 80-20 grant matches, that goes into a grant fund, and then we have to take that money back out of the grant fund and put it into the funds that it was paid out of. So this is just going back into those funds that it was paid out of. And it's not appropriating or anything, it's just taking the money from the grant fund and putting it into that budget or that fund number.
CCI.
Questions?
I'd make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you. All right, item number 4 is a Safe Haven Baby Box Installation and Service Agreement. I'm going to give you just a little bit of a background here. Last year, I was approached by individuals representing the North Central Indiana Right to Life, inquiring about providing a fire station location for a Safe Haven Baby Box. I felt like it was an important project to consider and one the city could support with a location. Working with Chief Wilson and the Warsaw-Wayne Township Fire Territory Board about the issue, location was mutually approved by the board and the Safe Haven Baby Box organization. In fact, on the November 13th Warsaw-Wayne Township Fire Territory Board meeting, the board agreed on the Station 2 West Wall location. Then the city attorney, our funding organization, which is the North Central Indiana Right to Life, and myself met to review the contractual agreement with Safe Haven Baby Box. We made changes to the contract and submitted those to Safe Haven that were tentatively agreed upon by the city and Safe Haven somewhere in the middle of January. Then the Warsaw-Wayne Township Fire Territory Board approved the agreement at its February 5th meeting. Tonight, we're asking for your recommendation to the Board of Works for final contract approval. Chief Mike Wilson from the Fire Territory is here. Dave Kuntz from Right to Life. Monica Kelsey from Safe Haven Baby Box, Scott Royce, City Attorney, are all here to answer your questions. In addition to the agreement, the city will also have a memorandum of understanding with the funding organization to underwrite the cost and provide annual payments for inspection. The Warsaw-Wayne Township Fire Territory will also have to put in and maintain an alarm system at Station 2 that notifies central dispatch of a baby surrender. This will cost the Fire Territory approximately $3,000 with annual costs of around $300 for the maintenance of that alarm. They will also pay for the installation of the box. So in summary, Safe Haven will provide installation oversight for the baby box. The box has been paid for by the North Central Indiana Right to Life. They will also make annual payments of $200 as part of the contract. The City of Warsaw will house the box at Station 2, will pay for its installation and provide and maintain the alarm system and notify 911 dispatch in the event of surrender. So I'm just here asking you all to give your approval to this Safe Haven Baby Box placement in Station 2, and then that contract will go to the Board of Works for final approval. But I will not do that without your approval. So I thought I'd have Monica, you want to come up and talk a little bit about Safe Haven Baby Box organization?
Sure. I founded this organization back in 2013, became a 501c3 in 2015. I was abandoned as an infant 2 hours after I was born. My birth mother felt she had no other options. Today, my birth family is on my board of directors, fighting alongside me, along with my adoptive family. So this literally is a ministry for us. This isn't about anything except giving women a last resort. Not sure if you guys have been watching the news. We have had billboards up in your area for the last several months. And a few weeks ago, we had a safe surrender in Kosciuszko County. And then I'd like to talk about last night for just a moment. We run a 24-hour hotline. That is what we call our workhorse of our organization. The boxes is kind of the draw, but the 800 number that women call, they're offered options. And last night at approximately 12:45 a.m., our hotline call came in from a woman in Whitley County, asking for the closest baby box. Closest baby box, as you know, is in Woodburn, Indiana, which is our fire station, or Coal Springs Fire Department, which is over by Michigan City. After going through the options with this mother of surrendering her child at the hospital in Whitley County, or at the fire station there in Columbia City, she refused. She refused to go to either one of those locations. We explained to her that the closest location was 40 miles away, that it wasn't a good option since she had just gave birth 2 hours prior. What we had to do, and this is kind of common, is when a woman doesn't want to go in, we have to, what we call survivor mode, and try to find anything that this mother will do to save the life of her child. We ended up showing up at the Walmart in Columbia City with fire and police dispatched. And this woman surrendered her child in the Walmart parking lot. One of the firefighters did know this mom, and this is why she refused to go to the fire station or to the hospital. I'm asking the city of Warsaw to allow us to place a baby box in fire station number 2 for the hope that it never gets used, for the hope that we can actually intervene with a mom and allow her to surrender at the hospital here or walk into the fire station. But if we don't have this option available, I'm afraid that one day we might have a baby being pulled out of a dumpster in one of the surrounding towns. We've been very blessed over the last 2 weeks to be able to assist these 2 moms with surrendering safely in Kosciuszko County and Whitley County. And so we're asking tonight for your vote to allow us to proceed with allowing this last option in Kosciuszko County.
Monica, would you talk just a little bit about the change in the state statute that allowed this to happen a couple years ago?
You know, back in 2016, I approached Representative Casey Cox, and you should have seen the look on his face when I said, I want you to pass me a baby box bill, because this has never been done in America before. So we passed the legislature, which allowed, mandated the Department of Health and Department of Child Services to make protocols, policies, and procedures for the use of baby boxes in the state. Well, they came back and said they didn't recommend baby boxes in our state because they wanted a woman to walk in and hand her child over, which is what we want as well. We want to allow a mother a last resort option. With the help of our attorneys, we decided to go ahead and launch, which, as most of you know, was a huge fight with the Department of Health. And as a nonprofit, small nonprofit in the state of Indiana, we were actually advised to shut the 2 boxes down that we had already installed. And I dug my feet in and I said, no, we knew that we were legal in this state, so we continued to keep them open. Because we kept them open, last night was number 45. 45 babies have been saved because of our efforts, 3 in our boxes. And if I would have shut those boxes down because they wanted women to walk in, just think of what could have happened to 45 babies or the 3 that were in our boxes. But I did pass again in 2017 another bill allowing boxes in hospitals, and then 2018 I passed another bill allowing these boxes in fire stations. We currently have 10 in the entire country. In 2 states, we're legal in 4 states, and we're getting ready to launch in Pennsylvania. So we are legal in the state of Indiana to place in fire station, manned 24-hour fire stations and hospitals. We do currently have 2 baby boxes, though, that are in unmanned fire stations, volunteer stations, where one of those boxes has housed 2 of our babies in our boxes. So women trust these options. They want anonymity, and I feel that that it's time to allow these mothers to do the right thing. We just had a baby last week, and I'll briefly talk about this, in Lake Charles, Louisiana. We're a national organization that started out of Woodburn, but this baby was left 50 yards from an ER door in the grass of a hospital. And you have to ask yourself, why did this mother go to the hospital knowing it was a safe haven location, but didn't walk in and safely hand this child over? And I think what happened in Whitley County last night explains that. She didn't want to be seen. She didn't want to be known. So this is just another option for a mom to choose to remain 100% anonymous under the safe haven law here in Indiana.
Any questions, Monica?
Yeah, the options that you said that you give the ladies when they call, what's the progression? I mean, which options are you giving them first? And I mean, can you kind of walk me through that a
Yeah,
little bit?
absolutely. We have a 7-step process. There's a protocol for our hotline. First one is obviously parenting. Can we help this mom choose a parenting plan, help her with a parenting plan? A lot of these moms that call us, we had one about 3 months ago that was homeless. Well, that's an easy fix for us because there's a lot of maternity homes or women's shelters where we can put this mom until they can work with her to get her life in order without her surrendering her child. Next one is adoption. An adoption plan is an amazing option. With me being adopted, I'm a huge advocate. And then we also talk about safe surrenders. There's a couple of things in between there where we have to kind of navigate as to, has this mother already given birth? Is she still pregnant? Because if she's already given birth, we're already past a lot of these options of an adoption plan or having the baby in a hospital. But the last option, or the second to last option, is to walk into a fire station like we did last night. We offered, to call the fire station. We offered to call the hospital. She just did not want to go there. So then, of course, we had to find a different alternative. But if there was a box in this area, there would have been a baby in it last night. And we were thankful that this mom allowed us to meet her at the Walmart and surrender her child. So, but a last option resort is the box. Second to last option is the safe haven law. I mean, let's be honest. The box is not a good option. It's only a good option if it's the last option that this mom has left.
Monica, how is your hotline manned? Are they volunteers that man the hotline?
I actually pay somebody $400 a month. That's all I have to pay, which is super awesome. It's kind of cheap, but I pay her $400 a month, and she is the coordinator. And then when she's off, she has 2 other people that are under her that are licensed counselors. These are not just volunteers. These are people that do this for a living.
We've I think everyone on the council's been inundated with some emails from a group and telling us how terrible this whole thing is. And I can't imagine anything being more terrible than, picking between a baby box and maybe a dumpster. That's beyond me. But some of the things that they bring up, can you address this group at all, or?
I have been harassed, stalked. My life has been threatened. I actually sued this organization. Well, it's two people, and their organization is no longer an active organization. They used to be a 501c3, but the IRS pulled their 501c3 status for noncompliance with the IRS. But I sued them successfully in Allen County Superior Court last year for harassment and slander, and the judge gave me a lifetime injunction against them. This is not a healthy person. I don't know how to explain it. One of his biggest things is the FDA. These boxes are not FDA approved. We've been cleared by the FDA. These are not medical devices. He brings up a lot of things. He's what we call a cage rattler. He just rattles your cage until he gets somebody to acknowledge him, and then he just hammers back and keeps going. But we did get a financial settlement against him in Allen County Superior Court, and as soon as I get paid, I'm buying boxes with it. This has been going on for years, and it's not a healthy thing.
Yeah,
So.
you wonder what his motive is. I don't know. Okay, thank you.
No, I don't. We have, and I'd be happy to give you guys the lawsuit and the final.
I think we have it.
You have it, okay. All you have to do is Google it, and it'll come up. So.
What keeps running through my mind, and I think I have the flavor of the council's opinion. What keeps running through my mind is a comparison to Virginia, where to Virginia, the state of Virginia, where they're actually calling for infanticide.
Right.
And this community and you are doing the opposite, and I think you'd be commended.
Well, thank you. To God be the glory.
You bet.
Mayor, do you have anything to say? I know, I do believe the first baby box was put in the fire station in Woodburn,
Actually, Michigan City.
Michigan City.
No. What? We've been married. We've been together 21 years.
Yeah, the first box was installed in Woodburn, and then a couple days later in Michigan City. It's nice to be able to give women of your community another option to be able to place their baby somewhere where the baby can be saved, and she can go on and save her own life too. Because a woman in distress, no telling what she can do. We hear these cases of babies being abandoned and they die because they're placed in dumpsters and God knows where. But at least these women know they have an option and they don't have to make that face-to-face interaction if they don't want to.
About the time I was approached, we were fortunate to have a mayor's roundtable in Woodburn, was able to observe that box actually installed in the firehouse, and it made very good sense to me. It was pretty simplistic, although there's obviously a lot of expectations, and with the contract we're looking at, everybody needs to know what their rights and responsibilities and expectations are for this. But again, I think we've done our due diligence, and appreciate your patience with us, making sure that it works for our community. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Can I just end with one thing? Being a child that was abandoned, my birth mom was 17 years old. She was brutally attacked and raped and left along the side of the road. And this was back when abortion was illegal in our country. So going from a child that always felt unwanted, I never want another child to feel unwanted, because every child is wanted by someone. And I think that my birth mom passed away, but I think she's smiling down today knowing that the child that she saved is now saving others. So, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Chief Wilson, I just want you to come up and maybe discuss this process as we've addressed it through the fire territory.
As I explained to the Fire Territory Board and Mr. Conderas, this started as they presented to the Kosciuszko County Firemen's Association. 14 departments stood and listened to this, came to a vote on the board floor, deciding on what we would do as a county fire association to support this. There was probably 11 departments there, and it was unanimous. So it was, well, where are we going to do it? And they all turned around and looked at me and they went, well, Warsaw's the center of everything. You've got Parkview Hospital, it's got an emergency room. You've got Kosciuszko Community Hospital. that Lutheran Ambulance Service that's right here in the middle of town, what happens if, it's not if, it's when. And we made a decision as our fire department to tell the County Firemen's Association, yes, we will move forward with it. And that's how it went, and started moving forward. She was able to come and speak to the County Firemen's Fish Fry. Room was full. She got a standing ovation from it, as her heart is there. So coming to you as a council, Fire Territory Board's very much on board with it. Your firefighters are on board with it. We've talked with Lutheran EMS. They're on board with it. Our Central Dispatch Center is already writing SOPs so that when that alarm system goes in, the box is installed, they know what they're going to do and they know who they're going to contact. It's all about the mother, the child, and our community.
So just as you mentioned, the Fire Territory Board did approve this with the understanding that their responsibility would be to install this as well as purchase the alarm system and then maintain that alarm system.
Correct.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions of Chief?
I'd just like to make a comment that being on the Fire Territory Board representing this organization, when this first came to me, I was a bit skeptical and I was getting a lot of emails from these people. And I think the mayor and the chief really shepherded this whole process through the Fire Territory Board in a very professional way. They answered all of our questions, and we had a lot of them. And there were some skeptics, but in the end, we were convinced, and I want to thank you for what you do, and from my heart, I'm proud to be a part of it. So, thank you. And it passed unanimously. And Mike, Chief, you might address part of the financial aspect of this, because I think some of the councilmen might not quite understand the finances, but.
Well, I'm going to have Dave talk about
Okay,
that. Yeah,
sorry.
I wanted to make sure you understood what the Fire Territory's role was and responsibility and what the costs were, because that's essentially what I want you all to understand, is that there will be some costs to the city. And again, that's at about, what, $3,200?
That is correct. So about 9 years ago, we put half of a system in Station 2 to monitor, to allow a lockdown system at our front doors to protect the front of the fire station. So all we're going to do is we're going to take that initial box and we're going to add a security system to that box that'll help monitor the baby box, but it's also going to put smoke detection in your fire building and heat detection in the apparatus bay. So it's twofold. It's helping us and it's helping them. And it's about a little less than $3,200 for that system.
It needs to be done anyway.
Yeah. It needs to be done anyway. And we will be looking at it in next year's budget to do the same thing at Station 1.
Now, and you'll be testing it, right?
That is correct. We will,
It goes through a test
every
house?
Monday, we have what we call equipment check day, where the guys go over all the apparatus. Some of you have been in and seen that. That will be a part of our Monday check. We will also be checking that with dispatch to make sure that the sensors that are in the box are communicating through the system to our central dispatch center.
And you log that and everything.
That is correct.
I was doing some research too on what happens in case of a power failure, and as I understand it, the box locks down so they can't open it up and
Correct.
leave the baby if there is a power failure, because that was a concern of mine, especially with the weather we've just been recently having. So I just wanted to let the council know that there is a safe guard on the box so that a baby can't just be put in there and, with no oxygen, no life-saving, to support it until someone can come and get it. So I think that's really important.
The other thing
to
that made
know.
me feel really comfortable about the location is that box is essentially in the living quarters of Station 2. And that made a whole lot of sense to me, that obviously they're not going to be in there all the time. They may be going on a call. It may be lights out, but
Very good.
it's probably the most visible.
Also, a point to you, bringing up that, Station 2 is on a new generator system.
Yeah.
So we will have power to that system all the time, if the generator fires.
All right, thank you. Dave, I know when your organization approached me and said, we've already got the money raised, that kind of makes it pretty easy to say, okay, let's go. And I don't want to underestimate what Right to Life, North Central Indiana Right to Life has done. Again, we've been made aware of the situation. We knew we wanted to help, but when a financial partner, organization comes along and says, you know, we want to pay for this, we want to raise the funds, and we've already raised the funds, let's go. I know the council is all appreciative that that is certainly an important, very important component to this. I'd like you to talk a little bit about Right to Life and how you got involved in this and your commitment to this.
Commitment to the baby box, right? Okay. Not my life story. Well, I will say Right to Life very much appreciates being looked at as a sponsoring organization, but this really is a community-wide effort. Many of you know Christy Ormsby. She actually led the fundraising event. She's not directly connected to Right to Life. The Greater Warsaw Ministerial Association has been involved in fundraising. We've had multiple people who have donated directly to Safe Haven Baby Box Foundation because they're not necessarily supporters of Right to Life. So the money, we've stand behind that. The money, it has come from a number of different sources that I think is an encouragement from a community standpoint. And the excitement that we've seen through Facebook and some of the feedback we've gotten from the news items with the Kosciuszko County surrender, just I think people are ready to see something like this happen, and they're behind it. So thank you very much.
Questions? And as I'd mentioned earlier, we will have a memorandum of understanding with the funders as we take this to the Board of Works, because again, there is an issue of $200 a month, and they've, Right to Life has agreed to pay that annually.
$200 a year.
A year, not a month, you're correct. Stand corrected.
You can give us $200 a month if you want.
All right, any questions? Ron, do you have a question?
I want to thank everybody for what they've done here.
I just know Mr. Dockery asked if he could speak too earlier.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I know there's a few here in support of, and anybody that does want to come up and say something, that'd be fine.
Yes, my name is George Dockery, and he already mentioned her name, but I bring greetings to you from Christy Ormsby. She's in Indianapolis, and sorry she couldn't be here. But she contacted me about this pretty early on. I think she talked to Dave already about the fundraising process of it. And for whatever reason, I know several people here in town and give her some ideas of some people that could call. But, you know, I come to you tonight as a father of 4. And I'm sorry that I was in tears while she was giving her, and if you haven't heard her story, it's hard not to be in tears to understand what she's been through, and now, as a child that was saved, is saving children, and what else can you ask for? Like I said, I'm a father of 4, I'm a grandfather of 12, and like, you know, it's been mentioned already tonight, if we don't do, and I urge you to pass this and to proceed this, because, like we said, we've already seen one here in Warsaw that was surrendered. And Mayor Daniels sent me a letter earlier today. I live in the Laurelville area, so naturally I'm in Whitley County. And there was one that they talked about that was surrendered last night, and my heart just melts. These children deserve a chance. And without a baby box, what chance do they have? The heat that I took during this campaign and this fundraising thing was just, and I can't imagine what Dave and the rest of them have been under the opposition, and I understand it just, you know, I had so many people tell me how wrong this was, but yet some of those same people want to stand up and say they're pro-life. How much more pro-life can this be? We're helping extend a life after it's already here. And like Ron brought up earlier, you think about what they're doing in New York, you think about what they're doing in Virginia, and we have a chance here. And even though I live in Laurelville, everything I do is in Warsaw. The politics that I follow is in Kosciuszko County, and I try to help out where I can. We have a chance to make a difference. And it's something that's so minimal. The funds have been raised. It's a $200 fee. But you have to stop and think, what's a life worth? And I come here tonight again, Christy, you know, this thing was just because of desire to make a difference in somebody's life. And I urge you, please vote in favor of this. And let's get the baby box installed so we can get this going. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Tony.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Tony Cirillo, Kosciuszko County Coroner. I know y'all know me, but not everybody in here does. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Baby Box too. I understand that there's a lot of choices in this world, and you know, Dave Koontz mentioned earlier that some people are pro-life, some people aren't, but they've still kind of donated to this. In my profession, this is a real viable option. You know, I don't know how many of you up here on the council have ever carried a baby out of a house or out of some place where it's died and had to deal with that, not only with the family and with the infant, but the emotions you have in your own self to do this job. I realize that, according to Monica, and I agree with this, that the Baby Box is probably a last resort because there's other options to try to get these mothers to do to give up their kids. But what I'm asking you to do tonight is really consider where we're at with this and the difference it can make. I don't want to ever have to carry another baby out of anywhere. I know in my career I probably will. But if we have this extra option now that can make that difference so that mother can remain anonymous but still give up babies so that it doesn't end up somewhere we don't want it to be, I'm all in support of it. I know the money's been raised. I know there's a lot of support in this room for it, and I think it's a great idea. And on behalf of myself and my staff, I would encourage you to pass this tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. All right, anybody else? Council, back to you. Any more questions? Again, we're asking just for your approval. City Attorney Royst has worked diligently on the agreement. We've made some changes. We've pretty much agreed on those changes, and we have a contract that we will take to the Board of Works, but not without your approval.
Mayor, do you need just a simple show of hands to signify support, or do you need an actual motion to be made?
Yeah, I'd make a motion, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd so move that we approve this.
All right,
I'd probably second that.
all right. Any
Well,
further-
I would. Not probably, I would.
No, I said proudly.
Any further discussion?
Thank you for your work on this,
You're welcome.
everybody.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? I think I knew what was going to happen. Thank you. I appreciate the council's support of this. Monica, anything else? I appreciate you traveling over, you and Mayor. Any final comments?
Just thank you.
Thank you. Today is a good day. For 2 reasons. Today is a good day.
So our next Board of Works meeting will be in
March 1st.
March 1st, and we will take it to the Board of Works with the approval of the council, and it'll just be a matter of their consideration, so.
Monica, did you say that handover took place at 12-something a.m. today, this morning?
The call came in at 12:45. The handoff was about 2:10.
So that happened and this passed all in the same day.
That's why I said it's a good day for a couple reasons.
Things go in the right direction.
It's a double whammy.
I have Mayor Daniel's letter, if you want to read it after.
He confirmed, DCS has confirmed it, so.
I don't need to.
All right.
I believe.
Any other matters to come before the council?
I have a question about committee appointments. I haven't received, the housing people said mine had expired, and I haven't seen any packets or information about our council appointments this year.
They've been in your mailbox for the last 2 meetings.
In the mailbox? Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other items?
Just an official thank you from me to council in the city of Warsaw for your kind words, flowers, and whatever, the recent loss of my mother. Appreciate everyone's thoughts and help.
All right. Thanks, Cindy.
And I may have mentioned this at the last meeting, but if I didn't, I'll do it again, at the risk of repeating myself. But boy, I sure like that new snow removal that the city's paying for and working with the chamber to clear off the sidewalks downtown.
Well, actually had an interesting chamber meeting this morning, WCDC meeting this morning. Our initial dues were up, and we were asking potentially why that is. And there's been a lot of really good, positive feedback from a new piece of equipment. Piece of equipment was $17,000. The WCDC paid $10,000 of that, It's housed, maintained, and operated by the Parks Department. They will use that piece of equipment in the summer for some mowing. But no, it was a important discussion, and with the chamber, or the WCDC insisting that we do it, I talked to Larry, and I asked Larry, and Larry said the Parks Department would be able to do it. So we're looking at our routes. We're evaluating the routes now. There's a few adjustments we'll probably make to those routes. But we've had nothing but good feedback, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah. Glad to do it.
So, all right. Visitors' questions and comments? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, thank you.
Do we have anything signed?
Shouldn't have two things.